Hey friends, hope this video finds you well. It's a day after I normally shoot it, but I didn't have any inspiration, but now I do. So having a discussion yesterday with a colleague, and it was just on the general state of the world as it pertains to the polarizing sides that exist in our society. Those who advocate certain lifestyle choices, those who are advocate certain health choices and money choices and thinking choices. And so this polarizing camps that exist throughout society, and at least in this society, I don't know what goes on in other parts of the world, but I can only imagine that it's similar because, well, people are people. So, and further to that, it is very common if you look at exchanges in social media where everyone feels the need to educate people on the ways to think and why their way of thinking is better, et cetera, et cetera. And arguably, depending on your perspective, which if you look in my video set, I've made a video on perspective before. I'll put a link in the description. It will enhance or skew how you view those opinions. But one thing that has always struck me unique as I consider how people operate and handle themselves, despite what their bravado or their speech is in a given moment, is the age-old expression, there's no such thing as an atheist in a foxhole. Now, the whole thing about there being an atheist in a foxhole is that it was commonly known that, when the soldiers, well, most recently in World War I and World War II, because that's when they had a lot of foxholes, no matter what you had noted your religious designation was, whether it was Christian, Jew, atheist, agnostic, whatever, when you were in a situation where your life was on the line, uh, people, universally, everyone calls out to God because it's in your genetic program. It's in the divine DNA that has been structured by the Creator, and of course, there's going to be differing opinions on that, but the jury is sort of, at least the intellectual jury is in that the complexity of DNA strands, et cetera, is so far out there that, at the end of the day, there has to be some divine intelligence associated with that. And so, even when people are dying in the hospital, if they have that short period of time between when they're told they're going to die and they're going to die, and they feel those tremors descending upon them, it is a very common thing in those hours, for people to call it to God. It's funny, even when I was a kid, I was saying this to a friend the other day, is that I thought, you know, sometimes you want to do less than colorful things when you're young because they seem like they're fun. And I always thought to myself, oh, well, it's okay. I can do this now because I'll get lots of notice when I'm dying, so I can ask God for forgiveness. Believe me, I know it sounds absurd. But as I said, no atheists in a foxhole. And so when you take that factor, that on a core level, we all have an inherent understanding and allegiance and alignment with our Creator. It then defaults to, you'll hear a lot of expressions out there where, fundamentally, a lot of people believe that all people are good. And personally, myself, I do believe all people are good, with the exception that sometimes they allow their selfish nature to get in the way of their ability to actually do good, or the most good they can. And what is selfish nature? Selfish nature is basically a scarcity mindset. It's sort of the feeling that if you have to indulge in certain behaviors to get your needs met, either emotionally, physically, financially, spatially, whatever, and you don't believe that it's something that will just come to you. It's something you have to aggressively handle, control, and bring into existence. And this goes back to what I was saying to you earlier about at the beginning of this video, when I talk about uh, the differing ideologies in our society. We oftentimes forget that we are all connected through our almost universal core belief in a God. And again, I know there's going to be some atheist who's going to chirp in on this video, but all I can say is I'll see you the week you die. You know, it's I have a few friends who are doctors, and they tell me that is very common. When you're in the death throes, you're calling out the Almighty. Just the way it is. And so I think it's very important when we think about each other and the actions we take towards each other, is to look at people as being as if we're all on the same team together. You know, the inherent flaw with one-upsmanship or talking to people about your ideologies or your ideas being absolute and correct. In many cases, it leaves no room for flexibility. Even to the point now that, I still see fairly much on the regular a huge dichotomy between the vaccinated and the unvaccinated, as if at this point it even matters. Really, when it was happening, it didn't matter, but as I said before, I felt there was a certain amount of dire emergency as it pertained to the procedure that was going on at the time. But in the aftermath, I bear no one any ill will, and I am pleased that the world is moving forward as it is now. And that brings me to the point that, as we think about the world as it is now, we can consider there's a lot of crises going on. We have the crises in the Middle East with Israel and the other guys there. We have the crisis that is ongoing in the Ukraine. We have a perceived financial crisis going on in America. We have the migrant crisis. Basically, if you type the word crisis into your favorite search engine, there seems to be a lot of crises going on. But the truth of the matter is that all of these crises have one common denominator, and that is that there are people in all of these crises. So, for example, if you consider the wars that are going on, there's a very funny movie, which is fairly off color, but if you have the chance to watch it, there's a funny scene in the movie Bruno, which is Sacha Baron Cohen, where he gets the two sides together from Palestine and Israel, and he wants to talk about hummus. Not Hamas, hummus. And the end result is that, it's comically hilarious, and he gets these guys laughing a little bit. You can tell they're very amused. But that is their humanity and their kinship coming out. And of course, quite frankly, as you know, I mean, that was just a staged event, but you could imagine that something like that going on in real life. What an interesting, different world we would have right now if something like that happened on the battlefield. Because, let's face it, good feelings are catchy. Even the migrant crisis, we see in America, yes, it's true that, we have illegal aliens pouring in on the daily. And, I think if a lot of people had an opportunity to, Americans, by and large, the reason they're upset about it is they're afraid they're going to lose the privilege that they currently enjoy, whether that privilege has been earned or not. And you can see my video, Unearned Privilege, where I cover that. Always there are human faces to these things, and it is something that we have to embrace, that we're all connected. But the big picture here is that when we consider that there really is no atheist among us, when in those dire circumstances, we can then look at all these circumstances, and I think expressing our best thoughts, desires, and wishes for each other, the argument can be made that is the only thing to do. And make no mistake, though, not the best can't always, at least initially, be perceived as what is happening. So, for example, if you look at what all of the bedlam that is going on in the southern U.S. with the flooding in the mountains and stuff like this. There's all kinds of speculation that it's, weather manipulation and all that kind of stuff. And, all those people are people just like you and me. And there are people who are praying for them right now. There are people who have been praying for America to return to a higher degree of moral fortitude than it has been for a long time. And an interesting thing about us all being interconnected is that if you have someone who is praying for you or asking God to intervene, it is foolish to determine that things are just going to get better. The things that are going on in America right now, whether it is the migrant crisis or those recent floodings or any of the other catastrophes going on, they may very well be our interconnectedness resetting everything. Because there is no garden or no tree, of course there are gardens, but there is no plant which flourishes long term and produces lots of fruit without proper care, feeding, and pruning. And what might be going on right now is care, feeding, and pruning. And so in many cases, it will not necessarily be clear what is going on in these war-torn areas or in these crises of weather or finances or sociological issues. They are simply the pains towards a better tomorrow. And the proof of this is this actually, if you look at the world, if you look at the world 100 years ago, it was a radically different place than it is now. Sickness was bigger, poverty was bigger, people weren't living as long. There were a lot of issues even 100 years ago that do not exist now, at least in some pockets of the world. Of course, the argument can be made to the contrary, but at the end of the day, it is my belief, and I think if you actually had some ability to, pay a bunch of guys to do some kind of survey or something, you would find out that is indeed, things are getting better. Because that's where we are all connected, and we're on the path to betterment together. So as you're sitting back and you're looking at your life right now, maybe things are not working out for you. Maybe you've lost a job. Maybe you've lost a partner. Maybe you're, having some health crisis. Maybe people around you are having a health crisis. Maybe there's just some kind of crisis going on. And by the same token, maybe everything's going perfectly. Maybe you've got the great job. Maybe you've got lots of money. Maybe you feel edified. But the point is that because we're all interconnected, we're all on a journey together. And in the case of you who is experiencing a lot of hardship, maybe this hardship is teaching you a valuable lesson and helping you to draw upon the collective to create new and wonderful possibilities for yourself. And maybe those new and wonderful possibilities will be an example to those around you who can then say, oh, I'm going to experience those new and wonderful possibilities too, because we are all connected. And of course, this may not be a cognizant thought. You tuning into my video today, perhaps, and if you've listened this long, perhaps you have an understanding or a realization that even just based on the core fact that there is no atheist in a foxhole, that this stuff does make sense. And that's going to change your perspective. You're going to be in a situation where, when you're interacting with people, one of the little story for myself here is that, I've got a background in sales. At one time in my life, when I looked at people or customers, I had the supercomputer running in the back of my brain saying, what can I get, take, or glean from this association? It wasn't really, my first thoughts weren't how I could make this person advance or be better. It was largely selfish thoughts. And I learned over a period of time that if I place other people's needs ahead of mine first, then mine are going to be answered. I'm not perfect in that regard because there have been times in my life when, I have had needs that I needed to have, I wanted to have met, combination of want and need, and I was not able to overcome my own desire and that, or my own, uh, is it selfishness or my own, want or need in that circumstance. But globally, I have sat back and it's served me very, very well in even the last couple of decades where when I'm, whether I'm dealing with someone on a business level or whether I'm dealing with someone interpersonally, a friend, a romantic interest or something, my first order of business is I assess what's going on with that situation and say, how can I make it better? How can I add to this circumstance? Because I have been blessed with great resources in many areas, and the Bible's clear that if you save too much or if you put away treasures, they're just going to rot and rust. So far better to put them out there. And so understanding, going back to what I was saying about the no atheist in the foxhole, that also means from the standpoint of our interconnectedness, not only is karma real, karma meaning, everybody hears about karma where if you do something terrible to someone, something terrible is going to happen to you. But by the same token, if you're doing wonderful things for people, that is going to be amplified for you as well in ways that you can't even imagine. And if you're actually operating in your highest good, you're not actually even going to be keeping score. You're going to be in a situation where you're just looking to put others first, and you're looking to make it so that you can help enhance their trip through this life on their own or even in association with you and be better people for it. It's a wonderful way to think of things. And and my strongest encouragement is that if you have not objectively sat back and said to yourself, okay, you could do an experiment. Just for the next, I don't know, it might take a few months, but for the next while, simply say to yourself, I'm going to put everyone else ahead of me. If I see someone in need, I'm going to ask myself how I can help them. If I know there's a need and I can help, I'm going to help them. If I'm associating with someone, I'm going to see how I can bring goodness to that equation. I'm not going to speak a harsh word. I'm not going to indulge in any negativity. And you might have to catch yourself, but do that experiment. Because if you do it long enough, you will find your life will radically change. You'll attract to yourself people who are of like-minded nature. Either you'll attract them or you'll re-attract them into your life. And those who've had to leave because of that polarizing dichotomy. Life can become so very abundant. And all of these things that are going on right now, they will be something that you will know about and you'll be, I don't even want to say concerned, you'll just be aware of. And in that awareness, because you realize that we're all connected, you can find a great deal of peace. Thanks, guys, for watching the video today. I appreciate it very much. Just more wandering thoughts from a middle-aged man. I'm going to put a link at the end of this video to my playlist. If you're inclined to listen to a guy like me ramble on in the background at length on some of these concepts that you might already know about them, but I might cause something to stir in the back of your mind, which will make you go, oh yeah, maybe I'll try that. As my goal here with these videos is simply to enhance all of our experiences together as we move through this thing called life, and make it so that maybe on the other side, our associations will be so much stronger. So thanks very much for watching, guys, and I really appreciate the energy exchange. Like, comment, subscribe, send me a direct message or whatever you like. That'd be awesome. I look forward to speaking with you guys again very soon.